The success of Tomlinson is built on its people.
Construction industry is very much a family.
Smoother, better, it's more client friendly, it's easier, more productive.
Like, I think just people hear the name Tomlinson, they know word has gotten around of what kind of a company we are, what we offer.
If you look around the city, the name Tomlinson, it's a kind of a testament to that.
Hello and welcome to Red Army Radio, where we bring you educational content, promote industry innovation, and feature key employees of Tomlinson Group of companies. I'm your host, Francis Brazeau, and today we have the most awaited guest on our show, the one that everybody's been asking me, when are you going to have Mr. Chris Kohler on? Welcome, Chris.
Well, thank you, Francis. Thanks for having me on Red Army Radio.
So what's the... give me a little bit of background for those of you that don't know you. I think everybody knows you, but what's how long you been working for Tomlinson? What did you start doing? How'd you get involved?
Well, the first time or the second time?
There's a story there. So let's start with the first time.
Well, I've worked for Tomlinson's for the better part of 40 years. So starting back in the early 80s, 1982, somewhere around there. And worked till about 1987, and then I left for a couple of years and came back in 91. So I guess 33 years for this round and 5-6 years for the last round.
And what'd you start off doing?
Well, what did I start off doing? Painting crushers.
Okay.
Yeah. So Ron and I were young men and 13, 14 years old, and Bill would bring us out to the Moody Drive quarry and hand us a wire brush and a scraper and 5 gallons of paint and said, paint those crushers.
Okay. And how long did you end up doing that? Just summers?
Just for the summer. So,
Yeah.
Back when we were kids, before we had driver's licenses, I guess we'd be, well, Ronnie probably started before me, but, somewhere in around 1981, 1982, we were 13 or 14 years old, and we needed to stay busy so we didn't get in shit in the summertime. So Bill put us to work, laboring.
Because you guys knew each other before, right? And went to school together?
That's right. So the Tomlinsons, sorry, I've had too many crashes without a helmet, so the dates might be a little foggy
Don't worry
here,
about
but
the
somewhere
dates.
around 1976, 1977, Ron's parents, Bill and Joanne, built a house 2 doors down from my parents. So I guess Ron and I started going to school when we were in grade 4. So
Okay.
What is that? 8 or 9 years old.
Nice.
And actually going back to working, the first job we ever had, when Bill built the house, he had a bunch of crushed bricks because we got backfill from Canada Brick back then, the leftover bricks, and we had to move a bunch of bricks into the backyard, and Bill bought us a surfboard to tow behind the boat.
Okay.
So that would have been my first job that we
And
got
your first pay.
monetary money out of. That's right.
And then the trouble started. You guys got your licenses, started driving around and causing a whole bunch of trouble. What did the work life look like? We won't get into the personal.
No. It still worked good. Well, even back when we were still kids, we would work with Bill's brother Kenny Tomlinson, helping with the blasting. So we were laborers for him, and we had to load, bags of dynamite and put them at all the holes and help the driller and the blaster do all the drilling and blasting. So we used to go to the Tatlock quarry up in the Lanark Highlands in the morning, and we'd do a blast there, and then we'd come down to the Moody Drive quarry and we'd do a blast down there in the afternoon. So we'd hang out with Kenny, and then when we got a driver's license, so that would have been somewhere around 1986, I guess.
Yeah.
We used to drive up together in the morning and go up to Tatlock and do a blast and drive back down. And there's a little story. It was actually in the Tomlinson Times. We were coming home from Tatlock to Moody, and we were going through the town of Richmond, and there was a whole bunch of kids standing in front of the school all dressed up, and Ron said to me, "What's going on there?" And I said, "Geez, I think we're supposed to graduate today." So that's how that went.
So you missed your high school graduation.
Yeah.
That's all
We
right.
got the diploma, Francis.
You did?
Yeah.
A lot of hard work put into that diploma.
There was a lot of hard work. Actually, there's a story behind that too. I actually got my grade 12 diploma driving a rock truck at Moody Drive. So Well, last year of high school, I was a little bit of a delinquent.
Okay.
Yeah, the principal
Made a deal.
and said, "Here, we're gonna give you a couple of credits, and
Just don't come back.
we're gonna give you a co-op, and we're gonna get you finished up."
There we go. That was nice of them.
That was excellent of them. It was quite swell.
And then you guys were what kind of troubles were you guys getting into? I'm sure there's starting to be stories with other coworkers, stuff like that.
Well, no, not
Not really. I don't believe you.
No, we just, I guess, back then we would have been 16 years old. And as far as work is concerned, we went to South Carleton High School. And when school was done, we'd drive over to the Moody Quarry once again, because that was the only quarry that we owned at the time. And we do stripping off the top of the quarry to get ready for the blast. So Ron would hop in a loader and I'd hop in a rock truck and he'd load it up. We'd just dump it in the berms and we'd do that till 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, and then go home and do it all over again. So that's how that went.
Then we switched onto a little bit more of a road building side of things, and you were involved in the 416 project, correct?
Yeah, so that was when I came back. So that would have been, I came back in 91 and we started that in 94. So that was right here, right at Strandherd, and went down to Hunt Club. And that was a big job. Like, it was a $12.5 million job. Like, that was the biggest job we ever had at the time. And that was pretty cool. I mean, young, Eve Bisson was the foreman. Ron was the superintendent. And like, we just worked like hell, and like 6 days a week. So, they'd crush at Moody Drive all week long. And then every Saturday, every rock truck that we owned, we'd drive it across the road. And we had a back road that came from Moody that took us out to the 416. And every one of those trucks would haul blast rock, because we had to blast all the rock in that rock cut there. And then we had to haul it from one end of the job to the other end of the job. And yeah, we just went at it. And I guess you want me to tell you a couple of pretty good stories about that.
There's some good stories about this job. So like, it's a full episode on the
full episode
job.
Yeah, actually, there could be.
Yeah.
So back then, I was the shop foreman. I was the Tomlinson dispatcher at the same time, and every Saturday morning, me and by another fellow that worked, he was a welder, John Foley, we would weld buckets, excavator buckets. We bought an old 1266 co-ring shovel. Like, this thing had two V12 engines in it. It was just a beast. It was the same size as 395 we have today, but old. And that rock that's through there is like super abrasive. Like, you'd wear out like a 60-pound excavator tooth. Like, every 3 days you'd be changing the teeth. So we had a bucket on the shovel, a bucket ready to go beside the shovel, and then we'd have one that we'd be rebuilding at the shop. And it's a Saturday morning, and Ron calls up and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing what I do every freaking Saturday. I'm welding plate steel onto buckets." He says, "I need you to go down to Beaver Road Builders, and he says, I want you to grab the two rock trucks, and he says, I want you to drive them over here to the 416. I said, "Drive them down the road." He says, "Yep, just get in them and drive them right down the road." So anyhow, I go down below, and the loader man, Gabriel, he was down there, and he was running a 600 Komatsu. Anyhow, he was just cleaning up his loader, and I said, "Gabriel, what are you doing?" He says, "Well, just cleaning my loader." He says, "Well, Ron says we got to grab those two trucks, and he says we got to get them over to the 416, and we got to help out this afternoon." This is like, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. So anyhow, Gabriel goes into the shop, and we get the keys, and one truck was a 35-ton truck, and the other truck was a 55-ton truck. He says, "Which one do you want to drive, the big one or the small one?" "The small one's fast." He says. "No." I said, "You take the fast truck." I said, give me the old C card." So anyhow, we fire them up, and this thing like had a great, like, was big to start off, and had this great big massive rock guard on the top of it. Anyhow, we're driving through Manotick, like, we're just clipping the traffic lights going through. Anyhow, we drive them from Beaver Road Builders on, so that's Rideau Road at Hawthorne Road, all the way out to the 416. And we're, I don't know, 7/8 done the contract, and we're hauling from the far end of the job to the south end to the far end of the north end. And anyhow, we're rolling along, and I'm going down loaded. Gabriel's coming back up empty. And back then, radial tires, we didn't have radial tires. They were sort of new, so we were running bias ply tires. And this rock truck blew a chunk of rubber out of the front of it, the size of this pad. And the truck just like barrel rolls right upside down in the ditch. So over on its side. So we pull over, we get Gabriel out, and Ron brings over a 350 cat excavator and a 330 excavator, and we haul the truck up, get it out, and poor old Gabriel, he's sitting on his lunch pail, just shaking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, pretty much shit his pants. And anyhow, we called George Levesque. He was our tire guy.
Oh, jeez, I remember George.
Remember
he was
George?
our tire guy. Yeah.
He was a good tire
He was
guy.
a good tire guy.
So we call up George, said, get a tire out here. And Gerard Roulette was our mechanic. We said, okay, Jerry, drop all the levels, drop the oil out of the engine and everything to make sure there was no oil sitting on top of the pistons and everything. So he drops the oil. George comes on with a tire. We put the tire on. Jerry fills the truck. We fire it back up. And we look at Gabriel and we give him a pat in the back and say, okay, bud, go get another load. And that's just how it was done back then. No one was hurt. Like,
No, that's right.
He had his seatbelt on. It wasn't like the thing was right upside down, but it was over, like it was on its side. Like it was on its side anyhow. And just got back in the saddle and we went and got another load.
Got back on the horse, as they say.
Got back on the horse, yeah. And then one other time on that job, that great big 1266 co-ring, like it was just a beast. And Jerry, the mechanic, sometimes he'd be working in that shovel. Like he'd be right between those V12 engines and he'd be tightening hoses and doing this. And anyhow, one day the damn thing catches fire.
From the engine compartment?
Yeah, the engine compartment, a hose let go and it hit a turbocharger or whatever, caught fire. And anyhow, Jerry jumps out and then he jumps back in because his toolbox was in there and fires his toolbox out and anyhow hits it with a fire extinguisher. We fixed some wiring and some hoses and
got back
we got back to work. So like from there to today, how we did things to how we're doing things today, it must be quite, I'm not going to say a shock because you were kind of along for the ride, but it's much, much different than what you grew up through. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing I say, we were never unsafe. Like if you did something unsafe or stupid, you were getting an earful. Like, you know what I mean? But we didn't have policies and procedures written down like we do now and a structure. Yeah. It was common sense.
Common sense ruled all, right?
Common sense ruled all. And I mean, you got a blast of shit if you did something stupid and that was unsafe. We worked hard and we just got at it. So, but yeah, no, it's different today. It's different today.
And then you've taken on, like from there, you've taken on a bunch of other, various roles from the maintenance side to demolition, things like that. What was the favorite job that you held?
Oh, the favorite job that I held. Well, in 98, Ron put me out on the road. So if I go back a little bit in time there, Francis.
Yep.
So in 1996, we got into the waste business. And we had a garbage contract with the city of Osgood. We had started managing Osgood Township's landfill back then. And so back then I was the shop foreman, the Tomlinson dispatcher, the roll-off salesman, and the roll-off dispatcher all rolled into one. And we went along for, 18 months, a couple of years. And like one day, it might have been Ron and Bill, both of them, they came into my office one day and they said, do you know where all the roll-off bins are? I said, nope, I haven't got a clue. But I said, if you give me 2 weeks, I think I could figure it out. So not long over that, they hired a guy to look after the roll-off business. And then I guess it was 98. That was 97, late 97, 98. Anyhow, Ron asked me if I wanted to go out on the road.
What does that mean?
So put me out in a pickup truck to look after the trucks, look after the excavators, and look after the people running the landfill.
Gotcha.
And the recycle plant.
Okay.
That's when we started our first recycle plant was in 97. We were in Osgood Recycling's yard. They had the C of A because our C of A wasn't quite ready over at the landfill. Anyhow, so it was 98, went out on the road, and my favorite job was out making a deal.
Okay.
You know, go out, look at a job, price it.
And at that point in time, nothing was too small or you know, that we wouldn't look at it, right?
Well, nothing was too small, but I was pretty scared about taking on something too big. I made sure I
didn't say too small or too big.
Yeah.
But like we'd looked at, you know, septic fields and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, tearing down houses. That was fun, you know, did a lot of demolition and well, I guess the biggest one we did was the South Side Stands at Lansdowne Park when we did the implosion of that one. That was
you had a pretty big role in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty cool gig. And well, there's a story to that one too. So we bid that job, and it was the first implosion, I do believe, if I have this straight, that the city of Ottawa did. And I remember Bert Hendricks, Adam's dad, we priced it out. And I remember Bert saying to the consultants, it was DST, a consulting engineers, we got to add extra insurance onto this job. We don't feel comfortable. We just want to put some extra insurance on it. Anyhow, we went away and they did the implosion, and it didn't go exactly to plan. It was very, very close, but a couple of pieces of concrete twisted the wrong way and did a little bit of damage to the upper stands. And we were really happy that we had that extra insurance on that job. But, you know, we didn't do the blasting plan or any of that stuff. That was, I can't remember who did that, but it was a company out of the States that did it. But we were in charge of drilling the holes and getting it all set for that company to go up and set the charges. But that would have been the biggest demo job that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we kind of took a little bit of a pause after that, or we kept going on the demolition stuff.
No, I wouldn't say we took a pause. It's a tough business.
Yeah.
You know, we tore down some high schools, Laurentian High School after that, and some other stuff. It's a rough and tough business, you know, and we're a very credible company and we do stuff right. So sometimes we're not as price competitive as you need to be. You know, sometimes you're looking for places for concrete disposal and stuff like that. You just can't go and bury shit wherever you want. So it's tough to make money. It's hard on equipment. It's hard on men. So I'll still do it. We still price some stuff, but you got to be in that business. You got to be tooled up. You have to have the right stuff. Once stuff gets to be, you know, quite high, you need the proper equipment that has the reach, and off you go. So
there you go. So then you kind of jumped in. You had a bit of, like, when I came on, you were very much involved with trucks and the maintenance aspect of that and the garages. And that was just through virtue of spending all that time in the garage, I guess, and then got into a supervisor role there and basically had your hands in everything and still do today, I guess, right? So
yeah, I'd say I got a pretty unique job here, Francis.
I don't even know what the title is anymore. It's just, you know, if you got something to get done and you don't know who to talk to, I call you. Right.
So, well, I had some great mentors, you know. I mean, I really did. You know, I always worked for Bill and Ron, you know, gave me every chance in the world. And when I messed up, you know, you didn't get shit. You knew what you did. And we always just talked through stuff, and it was great, you know. So you learned lots on the job, and you learned lots from other people. And so I just always had my hand in the equipment, you know. I come from a family of mechanics. My father was a mechanic. My brother's a mechanic. And I'm just a nuts and bolts guy. So you just learn. And
so equipment kind of went almost unchanged for a good number of years. I'm going to say even decades. And now we're seeing a bunch of technology get adopted in say the yellow iron more than anything. How do we decide if we want to go to the new technology versus the old? And, you know, what does that mean when we need to get rid of stuff? And like, just talk to me how you go through your capital process, if you will, on yellow equipment.
Right. So let me think here. Gets back to that too many crashes without a helmet.
Yeah,
so,
it's kind of just like there's more risk involved in it too, right? Because technology tends to go
right. So
go bad, or, you know, we grow out of it eventually.
You know, Ron's always been saying for many years that it's technology is going to move us forward. And I'm going to go back. It's got to be 10 years now. Well, it would be, because I just sold a Volvo shovel that was 10 years old. 10, 12 years ago, we made a decision that every excavator and bulldozer that was going to be bought at Tomlinson's was going to be GPS.
So what does GPS equip mean? Because I think like it's not just a pinpoint, right?
It's not just a pinpoint. So this 3D technology, allows the shovel to have the ability to know exactly where it is, what grade it is, and how, how much you're digging, how deep you're digging. And that technology is just not just deep, where you are, side slopes, all of it. And that the whole technology has really increased because the data that you're putting into those machines is so much better. So I want to say, I guess our first GPS machine probably was 2007 when we did Highway 7. So, but the files weren't that good. It would give you a lot of data, really more digging depths and stuff like that, but you still had to have a grade man going around checking. But every year it just gets better and better and better and better and better to like even the graders and the bulldozers. I mean, it just runs itself. They just set that grade control and that machine's doing the work. So, it's hard to find really, really good operators. Your best operators always came from the farm, and those lads were awesome. And we got some awesome operators now, don't get me wrong, but it's just another tool in the toolbox to help us along and just be more efficient in our work. So as far as where that happens with when you're buying and selling gear, it's cost more money to keep it going, but hopefully you're more productive. And we've gone to a different format. Instead of buying the GPS, we've gone to a product T-Pass, which Ryan Downing brought into it. So basically, it's more of a lease on that equipment. So
Always get the new stuff.
we always get the new stuff, and technology moves so fast. Every 2-3 years, it's obsolete. So we've gone to this T-Pass format, which always keeps the latest and greatest of GPS technology in the machine. So as far as life expectancy, we still run it out, 16 to 20,000 hours, depending on the piece of equipment. The smaller the piece of equipment, it doesn't really have rebuild life in it. Big equipment, it's designed to be rebuilt. So when you get into those like 95-ton shovels, 988 loaders, 775 rock trucks, it's got a second life.
Yeah.
You send it in and you do a certified rebuild on it, and you get it back out to work.
And what's a certified rebuild in the Caterpillar world? Sorry, that's a hard word.
Yeah, Caterpillar world. So basically it's a powertrain rebuild. They rebuild the engine, they rebuild the transmission, they rebuild the differentials or final drives or whatever in there. What it doesn't, it's not, there's no sheet metal or anything like that. There's always a bunch of extras, hoses and stuff like that. But the real hardware, the real working parts of that machine all gets rebuilt.
All gets looked at, inspected, rebuilt probably for the most part, right?
Rebuilt. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And they offer kits basically to kind of get that done. That ourselves, or do we?
No, we give that to Tormont because you get a warranty on the backside of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about trucks? On the truck side, we went through a whole Clean Energy Act exercise when the DPFs first came out, which created a bunch of frustration. Seems like got things under control now, but now there's a next gen of emission standards that the manufacturers will need to abide by, which we're going to see here in the next 2 to 3 years. You'll probably know better than I will, but
yeah, well, actually, that's been a disaster. So right around 2010, the world changed.
yeah,
with all that DPF filters and stuff, and they're just trying to keep the pollutants out of the air. So I get it. We were invested in international trucks, and they went with a platform that was different than everybody else. Didn't work out that well. You would have seen that back at Cumberland Ready Mix at the time. So we probably went 4 or 5 years not even buying a truck because wasn't sure what to buy, and international wasn't offering the product, and so we sort of just put a little bit of hold on things. But also at that point in time, we were into growth mode, and we were that's when we were buying up the sewer companies, and each one of those fleets came with quite a few trucks. So I didn't really need to buy any trucks. So anyhow, we watched and see what worked. And then in about 2016, 2017, it started to pan out. They had those emission systems working better, and the uptime is better, and still more cost, which is a drag because it's hard to make money with a truck. It's a tough sled. So, but anyhow, I think we're through our growing pains with that. And yeah, now the biggest thing that we're onto is the new technology with the natural gas, with the CNG, right? So works well. It's clean. You don't have any of that pollutants, and seems to be working pretty good.
Yeah, we're still in the early stages, but seems like repairs are a little bit more manageable without that, diesel emissions standards that we have to follow, whether it be EGR valves or DPF filters, things like that. So far, so good.
So far, so good. That's right.
Good. The other thing I actually wanted to talk to you about, it kind of changes a little bit the mindset of this podcast, was Chris Kohler has a number of euphemisms or sayings, and I wish I had just started a book when I met you, and every time you told me something that I had to wrap my head around after you left, what the hell did he just say? But it ends up making sense. I wish I kept all of those.
Right.
Where did you get them?
I don't know where I got them. I just hear something, I think it's funny, and it just sort of sticks in his brain, So, no matter where you go, there you are.
On that, thanks a lot, Chris, for joining podcasts, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Francis.
All right, take care.
Ciao, ciao.